G'day, g'day. It's Mathematical KM here again. Remember the KM's Keith Malumbi, their initials, not a title. And bringing you round 8 of the Canberra Chess Club's Canberra Cup. 60 minutes plus 30 seconds a move. And we're going to be looking at a wild carded game where both places had many chances to win. We've got the white Hippo coming in again. And just on how we start, I'm on 1475 and my opponent weighs in at 1690. So 220 odd above me, but birth year 2016. By my count, that makes him 9 years of age. So I've got a little bit of experience. Let's see how that experience goes. Okay, here we go. And this video is going to be called Check Your Mirrors. Bit of an analogy with driving a car, check your mirrors. If you're a Hippo player, check your mirrors. By mirrors, I of course mean your diagonals. Okay, let's go. Well, standard, we begin to fianchetto. He takes the middle, he takes the whole middle. I advance the D pawn. Interesting, a C pawn to protect his D pawn. My other central pawn, so I can do the Lego fit in the middle if he pushes. Fairly standard, he's knight to f6, giving him, so he's got 2 pieces on the D pawn. Denying the G4 square, and it's one of our standard moves in our first 10. And I do say standard moves, first 10 moves, still check your mirrors every move. It's not on. He's going to fianchetto himself. Let's get ready to do our other fianchetto. He fianchettos, I fianchetto. Yep, that is indeed a blunder. If I wasn't just on robot, do first 10 moves, thick-skinned Hippo. This was a really tough arm wrestle, and it would have been very, very nice to have gone up a central pawn for nothing. This guy was hard to play, but right now, right here, right now, check your diagonals. Tell me what's protecting that E-pawn? Nothing. But I haven't played my first 10 setup moves. Got to check your diagonals, check your mirrors. Okay, so that's the first lesson learnt in this game. Also, don't underestimate a 9-year-old opponent sitting across from you in an over-the-board game. That's another one. Okay, so having missed checking my mirrors, we displayed a standard thick-skinned Hippo setup. He gives himself a piece protecting the E-pawn, so it's no longer on. I get another knight in. He's now got 2 pieces protecting his E-pawn. And I believe if you were to look at the white setup, I now have the full thick-skinned Hippo. He castles. And now it's a matter of this is the breather moment. What are we going to do? Now, he's got a queen and a knight protecting this pawn. And having the queen as one of the 2 protectors makes that E-pawn, I feel, a little more tempting than the D-pawn. The D-pawn is protected by 3 pieces, one of which is a pawn, which is the best type of protector. You don't mind losing it. But safety first. When you got fianchettoed bishops looking at each other, and let's go back, did the computer even like that? Rook to b1 is the 3rd best move. So yeah, let's just protect our hanging fianchettoed bishop. He moves a rook in towards the centre. I take some space on the same side as his king because I can. He advances a pawn. Now let's tickle this E-pawn that's only protected by a knight and a queen. He takes. What do we take back with? Computer actually likes the E-pawn. And I think maybe it makes a bit of sense because pawns together are stronger, and a pawn storm and then maybe getting my king into a queenside castle. Second best is knight takes, which I've gone with, and it's threatening his bishop. By the way, that was just going back a little bit. It's not quite there if he doesn't take it, but that bishop was in a bit of danger of being trapped. Needed a little bit more protection on that square, but he makes sure that doesn't happen. So I come in with the knight. He takes his knight away. Computer wants me to swap the bishops off. His bishop's a defender of his king. It's probably a good idea. Computer says it is, and looking at it, I can see it. I'm a little bit worried about this pawn being hanging and getting a few things coming in to attack him on that f-file is my plan. So, in that vein, castle. And I've got a rook facing his rook, and I'm thinking about getting the queen there, and that knight can move. Things might be able to happen. Okay, so he's moved his queen out to an interesting square in b6. Computer wanted d4 to just block it, but I've moved my queen into that file. And for now, the queen's protecting the pawn his queen's attacking. He's brought a knight in. Can't come here, here, or here. Not too worried about that knight just for now. But let's take it. He takes. I take. Computer calls it great. He takes, and I've gone my queen across. It's still protecting that one. The idea being that it's still hopefully, generating some sort of attack over here on the king side. He moves the knight away, so the rooks are facing each other. Now let's keep his queen where it is. He takes, I take. I get the impression it's looking pretty symmetrical and he's wanting the queens off, which I thought at the time felt a bit drawish. And queen times c7, the eval is indeed 0, and it's the best thing I can do. I couldn't think of anything better looking at it, so I did it. So it's can I hold the draw against this 9-year-old who's probably done a lot more endgame study than me. And we'll see how we go. And let's take a look at what the computer says, and this is the bit where I really need to do more learning. Computer gives white the edge if I just play c4, which is trying to break through where the pawns are, and they're on the light squares, and I've got a light squared bishop. Kind of see that. Next best by the computer is king h1 and knight to f3. Getting the knight there. I can see how, that's an interesting outpost, but he's got 2 pieces on it. So I did think about getting the knight there, but not really while he had 2 pieces. So I've advanced, and I thought I'll try and, break through a little bit on the king side. He takes his rook back. Computer still wants c4. It wants me to break that up, and maybe while I've got that light bishop, I might win something in there. g5 is the next best, and played. Because I figured if he takes it, I'll take back. And I was thinking, for now, that knight is really well and truly held back. Okay. Ignoring the rooks facing each other, the computer wants the knight f3, or putting it in the way. And I thought that pawn's hanging. Let's threaten it with the bishop. It's interesting, his best move was to get the rooks off. It's possible I should have got the rooks off given, the state of endgame skill, if the rooks were taken out of it, maybe that would have suited me. But for now, so he's protected that pawn. C4 still the... So breaking it open a bit, really, that's a lesson. Knight F3, it's now looking at... if I come here, it'll be threatening that pawn, or I've got the outpost that's there. He's driven forward. Activating the king. King to G2 is a bit of a win. And rook to E7 is an interesting move. But now we're down to A4, which is taking the space and advancing my pawns and getting them on my colour and off of his. What do? I protect my D pawn so that if he takes it, I can keep my outpost there by taking back with the C pawn. And white's got the edge here, so far so good in this endgame. And we're at move 28. He completes his chain, and they're all off of the colour of my bishop, so it might have been what he's doing. But C4 is still the go. Failing that, king to F2, activating the king. And king G2, activating the king. What did I do? Computer didn't mind it, and I've threatened a hanging pawn. He moves his knight to protect it. Computer wants me to try and move my king forward, or move the knight back. I've moved the knight back. Now he's threatening my G pawn, and it's covered by my knight. Best move here is B4 or king F2. Everything's holding, so getting the king in there is a bit of a message, and A4 third best, taking that space. All basic ideas that I need to get into my endgame play. Finally moving that king forward. He takes... The best one to take is the C pawn. Still got the outpost. The outpost is only threatened by a bishop, not two pieces, not anymore. So the knight could be placed in there. That was a mistake. And again, this is another idea. Got to get into the endgame play. Plus 2.44. Bishop D7. Threaten the rook. And from there, we look at threaten the rook. The rook comes to threaten the bishop. The bishop moves back to where it's threatening a pawn that comes with check. He takes the other pawn. I take a pawn with check. And we're going well. It would have been a beautiful move. So there's taking the space, breaking it open, always check for, well, as we know, threats. So, but I didn't make that threat. What did I do? Protected the pawn that was under threat. Now black's got the edge, he played the correct move. Now I should move my knight to H4 to keep it on a drawn game. But I've let him open. Those pawns being locked up is actually probably pretty good for me. And I've let him double my pawns, win a pawn, and he's got 2-on-1 in the middle. So that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, or the hippo's back. That lost the game, putting the knight into the bad outpost. The bad outpost should be the second choice for the name of the vid. Okay, the king comes forward. He gets another pawn. Getting the bishop there. Threatening the pawn. I've got two pieces on it. He comes back. I win one of the two pawns and threaten the rook. Now, I can't take the pawn without losing my rook unless I do something. King f4. Because he can't take my bishop is the thing to think about. And I can just get myself a piece threatening that knight, and if he moves to give me a check, I can just take the pawn. So it's back to 0.00 with King f4. These are the little moments I've got to look for. An inferior move. Gives him a check, which means I can then move the bishop. I move the bishop so it's covering a lot of the knight squares, and he can't go there. That knight's only got these two choices. So he's come in, threatening the pawn, threatening the knight in a way, and the knight can't move to check me, but it can go where it's protected by the pawn. Brought the king across. We're at plus 2.9, so we're uphill from here. And that was a mistake. I thought it was a very interesting move at the time. And this is a thing about the level that I'm calculating. I did calculate that if I took that pawn, that he had a check fork. But I didn't really think about that enough. I take that, he gets the check fork. I then get to take his rook with my king, and he gets to take my rook with his knight. The pawn's gone. I've still got this pawn, and my king is in a position to go after the final pawn. It's back to drawn if I take that pawn. So that's a little bit of analysis on endgame thinking. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I needed one more move deep, thinking that one through. So, and yeah, now it goes to 4.7. He takes, do a little bit of kicking and screaming, but I'll go for show you the last couple of moves. All I can do is block and that's when I shook his hand. Yeah, I could tell it was all over bar the shouting on those mate ins. So a very interesting game against a 9-year-old who's 225 rating points above me. But check your bloody mirrors when you're playing the Hippo. What was that? Around about move 8 could have gone up +1. And that probably would have changed the face of the game. As it was a good, hard-fought game. Both players had their moments. But back to school for this Hippo. Check your mirrors, even in the first 10 moves when you're setting up the thick-skin Hippo. All right, mathematics.